So, Digby, the first debate is behind us. Earlier this week, I did a segment on Chris Hayes's program. I think that they had entitled "We Breathe a Sigh of Relief," and let's just start with that idea. There was a tremendous amount of tension for those of us who are very concerned about the notion of a Donald Trump presidency leading up to the debate. I mean, what do you think? I mean, aside from the normal anxiety, why do you think it was so intense?
Well, I think there are two reasons. The first one is that, it was the polls were closing. It was really, it's tight. And that just automatically raises the tension. And, by the way, for those of us who are terrified at the prospect of a Trump presidency, he's the one who was closing. He had been, substantially or at least slightly behind throughout, and it looked as though he was closing in. And we don't know yet at this point whether or not that has continued, but he I think that was a big part of it. And then there was this other thing, which this had to do with whether or not Clinton was going to have a coughing fit on stage and somehow validate the impression that Drudge had so carefully set up, and that Trump had and his friends like Alex Jones and Roger Stone and the rest of these people had sort of fed over the months, that she is somehow infirm. And I think that there was, whether or not people wanted to admit it or not, they were afraid that somehow or another she was just not going to handle the pressure in some way, or was going to look weak. And of course, that didn't happen, and she actually looked far stronger than he did. So hopefully that fear at least has been somewhat set aside due to her performance.
I got to tell you, we might as well start with that, because I have to say, I had completely forgotten about that. Like, and I think that has to be a testament to her demeanor and the strength that she showed during the course of that debate. I had completely forgotten, honestly, until you said that, I had completely forgotten the notion that there were rumors on the right. I mean, for those people who don't, allow their browsers to go to places like Net Daily, and I applaud you for that. And I think your computers are full of a lot less malware than mine. That was an ongoing narrative. Like, she is, Trump predicts that she's going to cancel. She's already basically trying to figure out an excuse to not show up at the debate because she can't handle it. She's going to fall down after, and in retrospect, I had completely forgotten about that theme. And she came off, and if it was an act, she deserves an Academy Award and is a far better actor than Donald Trump, who seemed to basically, was huffing and puffing throughout the whole thing. She looked almost bubbly up there. Like there was the type of energy we thought, okay, now she's going to start the rest of her day. Donald Trump, on the other hand, the guy spent the first 30 to 45 minutes, it seemed to me, sniffling in a way that I would normally not, it would not occur. Marco Rubio must have been somewhere going like, God, if only.
Yeah, I can't believe I lost to this guy. And the thing is that this is actually true of all of Trump's debate performances, and for whatever reason, and I have my theories, this never really was noted by anyone. Do you remember after the first one where, it went on for like 3 hours? It was a really long debate. I think was it the one at the Reagan Library?
Right.
And there were, 27 people on stage.
And there was an airplane behind them, I think it was, or something like that.
Yeah, okay. it was a marathon. It was a marathon. And they had, but it needed to be. They had so many people.
Right.
And that was with the kiddie debate as well. That went on for hours. I was exhausted at the end of that, and frankly, really drunk because the drinking game was so, went on for so long. At the end of that, Trump looked like he had been hit with a tranquilizer dart. I mean, he really could not handle it. It was obvious that he was flagging. Of all the guys, now he is the oldest guy, and I don't think he was prepared for that, and I don't think Trump spends much time on his feet, and he had to stand for 3 hours, and it was clear that he didn't like it. And when he came off stage, I will never forget this. He said, that went on way too long, way too long.
Yeah.
And he later tried to sort of say, well, it was too long for the audience. I can handle it, whatever. But you remember all the negotiations they were doing with the debates, that he and Ben Carson went in and put their, put their foot down and what have you. It was about that. One of the big things was the length of the debate because, he really did not look good. And he never did. He's always, by the end of these things, looking very tired. It's fine. I'm standing, on your feet for a couple of hours, if you're 70 years old. It's okay if you get a little tired. I'm not even saying that that's an important thing for a president to be able to do, but it takes a lot of gall for that guy to go around talking about her strength and stamina for months on end. It happened long before she had pneumonia. He was pushing that line. And, let's face it. I mean, it's a sexist, ageist thing, him going after her saying she's, let's just face it. She doesn't have enough testosterone to get the job done, if you know what I mean. And so, I've always felt like this is one of those things I'm going, really? This guy is saying this? I mean, he can barely stand up. And in fact, in this debate the other night, if you look at the two of them, and in fact, I saw some body language experts on CNN talking about, because there's this whole school of thought about debates that if you watch them with the sound off, you can always tell who won. And they were pointing out that she, unlike him, she stood squarely, very straight, very, very, and then facing the camera. When she turned to him. She just turned her head. She didn't turn her whole body. And they all pointed out that he was slumped over the podium, holding on with both hands, which is a very strange thing to do, and essentially looking very tired. So at the end of this whole thing, and it's all nonsense, Sam. I mean, you and I both know that they're both probably in, it seems to be that they're both in decent enough health to be president, and we've had plenty of presidents who had many health problems that were great presidents. So this is not really the criteria that people say it is, and they both have perfectly capable vice presidential, backups if something were to happen. So, this is all just a nonsensical discussion in many ways. But if you, just taking it for what it was, she, I think, allayed that. As you say, you didn't even remember it. And I think most people don't remember it today because she looked very, very much like a healthy, vital. She was in good humor. She looked very, she was a perfectly healthy and energetic person on stage. And compared to him, I think she actually looked quite a bit better. So,
and the point isn't, I mean, it dispels those concerns that people had about her health. But like you say, the health issue is overblown for a myriad of reasons. But the one that resonates, and I want to talk about this when we come back in terms of start to break down specific moments. But what I think stings is that Trump is making such an issue of it. And there was a couple of moments like that that we can talk about when we return. But it's one thing to say, okay, health isn't really that big of a deal. She put it to rest. But what it also does, it begins to impeach Trump's credibility, because it's one thing to say, hey, there's some health concerns about here. I don't know. It's another for him to get up there and go like, I'm vibrant. I'm in much better shape than she is, and come off looking like, the guy, frankly, looked like he had been walking around lost in a parking lot by the end of this thing. And so that did not help him. But we got to take a break. And when we come back, let's dig into some of the specifics about the debate that resonated with you. We got to take a quick break. Sam Seder, Ring of Fire Radio. I'm talking to the great Heather Parton, or Digby, from the blog Hullabaloo.